Details coming up later. Right now, very pleased to have as our first guest today, Ms. Victoria Dupuy. Victoria's husband, Dean, died 4 years ago at the age of 46 of a heart attack. He was healthy, he was a runner, had been proclaimed in excellent health during a routine physical just a few months before his passing. This is National Men's Health Month, and Father's Day is coming up. And Victoria has come up with a great idea. She heads the nonprofit No More Broken Hearts, whose mission is to promote awareness of coronary artery calcium scan. Victoria, welcome to the Mike Schikman Show. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, I can imagine it was a terrible shock when your husband passed.
It was a big shock, yes.
No idea? He had no family history, no problems at all?
No family history, normal cholesterol, normal blood pressure, never smoked a day in his life. He actually that morning had done the Muddy Buddy run with our daughter. He was playing ice hockey that he did every week for 15 years. He was a mountain biker. He was a runner. He was a snowboarder, and yet still had disease that went completely undetected because he looked fit and healthy. Matter of fact, when he collapsed on the ice, and I actually was not at the hockey game. My kids were, who were 16 and 11 at the time. And they incubated him to get his pulse back and took him to the hospital. And when I met them at the hospital and I was in the ER, and I was asking the nurse in the ER what they were waiting for, and she said, we're waiting for the on-call cardiologist. We think your husband had a massive heart attack. And it was so shocking to me to actually hear that this 46-year-old man who looked perfectly fit and healthy had a heart attack, because what we have perceived to be doing all the right things, right? Eating well, exercising, keeping our cholesterol down, we are led to believe that we cannot be at risk for a heart attack. And what I've learned now is that it's completely untrue. And unfortunately, it is the 45 to 55-year-old healthy, fit men and women who fly under the radar because of the fact that they look healthy and fit.
Now, he had a full physical a few months before. Mm-hmm. Was he just in too good a shape? They didn't bother with an EKG or anything like that?
Well, see, an EKG isn't going to pick up any kind of plaque buildup or blockage. What an EKG does pick up is if you have an irregular heartbeat or you have an arrhythmia, or if you are in the middle of a heart attack, an EKG will pick that up. It does not pick up plaque burden. A coronary artery calcium scan will actually identify the plaque in your heart arteries. And unfortunately, it is just not routinely done, and it isn't even discussed with our doctors if you're passing all of the other standard tests.
I'll tell you the truth. I've never heard of the coronary artery calcium scan.
That is why I'm doing what I'm doing, Mike, and that is why I am very grateful for you to have me on your show. It is a test that's been around for 30 years. 30 years. It's not new.
Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Now, is this an invasive, I'm trying to figure out how come it's not being done when plaque seems to be the last couple of years has really been on the radar as far as a problem for heart disease.
It is shocking to me, and I agree with you. So it is completely non-invasive. It's about a 5-minute CT scan, okay? And what it actually does is it identifies heart disease. It identifies the plaque. That is the disease itself, and it will give you a score, okay? So if you have anything more than a 0, I don't care if it's even a 5 or a 10, you have the beginning stages of heart disease. Now, like any other preventative screening we do, whether it's a mammogram, whether it's a colonoscopy, whether it's for prostate cancer or lung cancer, if that scan picks up even the smallest amount of disease, what do? We treat it and we manage it and we make sure that it doesn't progress. It baffles me that we don't do the same thing for the heart when we've got a preventative screening that's very inexpensive. There's been thousands of studies done as the validity at identifying disease before a heart attack ever happens, before you get a stent or you're in bypass surgery. And it just doesn't make any sense. People are dying every minute of every day of a heart attack.
Well, and this is not new. We have had a number of healthy men in their 40s, 50s who are runners, who are weekend athletes and maybe more, and all of a sudden, boom, they pass out and pass away, and everybody looks and goes, what happened?
Exactly. It's very, so I live in the Northern California area, and I do a lot of public speaking, and I will say, and I do a lot of sporting events. And I will say one of the things that I have found when I'm out there is a level of denial as, we fit, healthy men and women that we can't have heart disease. There's some sort of a stigma that if you have heart disease, it means you have not been taking care of yourself. And that is false. That is very old school. I mean, the way that we look at somebody who's at risk for heart disease, think about it, is the Framingham Risk Predictor Scale. It was developed 50 years ago. We're still using a system that was developed 50 years ago to identify the number one killer in our world. It doesn't make any sense.
Victoria Dupuy is our guest. She heads a nonprofit called No More Broken Hearts. Tell us about that, Victoria.
Well, I started No More Broken Hearts after a couple days after Dean died. I had called his doctor, and because he'd been for his annual exam, and asked his doctor, "Did you miss something?" And his doctor said to me, "Victoria, I'm so sorry for your loss. It's just not something we test for. It's not like getting a mammogram or a colonoscopy." Now, Mike, we know mammograms save lives, and we know colonoscopies save lives. You can search anything on the internet about the reduction of deaths in both breast cancer and colon cancer because of early screening. So I kind of went on a mission. I kind of went on this long journey of research. Like, how can that be? I didn't understand. I started talking to different cardiologists around the country, looking at different studies. Unfortunately, a lot of this information is only available through medical websites. So unless you have a reason to go search for it, most of us are not going to go search for it. But as I was out in our community and sharing my story, what I really was amazed by was how many people had the same story. My story is not that unique. Every time I speak with a group of men and women, the first thing I ask them, how many of you know somebody, or you know somebody who knows somebody who's had a heart attack? And almost every time somebody raises their hand. That's a problem. That became a problem for me. And so I started No More Broken Hearts to really just raise awareness about coronary artery calcium scans, to educate our community to be their own advocate, go to your doctor, demand this test, do your research. There's tons of information if you want to do your own research. I mean, we post articles and videos on our website all the time, and just educate yourself. I mean, we're not as healthy as what we think we are, and I don't care how fit you think you are.
Well, and the other thing is, and you were talking about cancer, and doctors keep a good look at your PSA test for prostate cancer and the colonoscopies, as you mentioned, and there seems to be. Do we have any idea how many men and you said women too die because of coronary artery calcium?
There are approximately 735,000 men and women that die every year from heart attacks.
Well, from heart attack, but they're not necessarily the fit athlete like your husband was.
No, they're probably not all, but still, there's 735,000 men and women that die every year. Here's also what's really interesting, Bob, and this comes directly from American Heart Association and the CDC. Out of that 735,000, 525,000 men and women, it's a first-time heart attack. 210,000 are a second-time heart attack.
You know,
so here's one of the misconceptions. You know, if you're fortunate enough to have a heart attack and survive it, more than likely you've either had some stents put in to the artery to open up the artery, or you've had bypass surgery. Okay, stents do not prevent heart attacks. Stents only open up the artery that's got the existing plaque burden. It does not actually reverse the disease. And so a lot of people that get stents end up having to get re-stented 10, 12 years later because the disease keeps growing. If you identify the disease, you can absolutely manage it through diet, possible through, medical therapy. It really depends on working with your doctor. But the cardiologists that I work with around the country that sit as my advisors, every single one of them says we should not be having heart attacks in this country.
Because we have the capabilities.
We have non-invasive tests that have proven the validity, and we're still using an old model called the Framingham Risk Predictor. I mean, even the blood test that we normally get at when you go for your annual exam is the same blood test they've been doing for 40 or 50 years. There are new tests available that they're way more advanced technologies and give way more information of what's happening with inflammation markers and different particles in the body that are better indicators of heart disease and heart attack risk than your standard test. And again, nobody talks about it. And it just doesn't make any sense.
Victoria, you mentioned your husband had been in a father-child mutter earlier in the day. It must have been even more devastating to your child.
Yes, he was her best friend. He was her best friend, and
she saw him healthy.
Yep, and saw him collapse at the same time.
Victoria Dupuy, where can people find out more?
So you can go to our website, nomoorebrokenheart.info. We also link a lot of different findings on our Facebook page, which is No More Broken Hearts 2014. And then I really encourage your listeners, go talk to their doctors. Talk to their doctors. You can either get a referral and go to your local hospital. The test is typically $100 out of your pocket because insurance doesn't cover it. You can go to an imaging center. You'll pay a little bit more money. You'll probably pay a couple $100. It's worth it. It can save a life.
Victoria Dupuy, I congratulate you for making lemonade out of lemons. I congratulate you for trying to help others. Hopefully you've saved a life or two this afternoon.
I hope so too, Mike.
Victoria, a real joy. Come back and join us again.
Thank you so much. I would love to.
Thank you, Victoria Dupuy, and the name of her nonprofit, nomoorebrokenhearts.info, if you're going to the internet.